This episode of Hellbent for Horror is brought to you by Patreon supporters and listeners like you. If you enjoy Hellbent for Horror, please consider supporting the show by contributing either on our Patreon site or via PayPal. You can find links to both of those on hellbentforhorror.com. And I thank you for helping to sustain the show. Hi, and welcome to Hellbent for Horror, a podcast devoted to all things related to horror. I'm S.A. Bradley, and I'm a lifelong movie lover, but my heart belongs to horror. My biggest thrill, however, is getting to talk to people about this stuff. I really want to start conversations with you. I want to say a special hello to all my creative listeners out there, the writers and the musicians and the comic book artists and my fellow podcasters. I get emails from you guys every so often, and I'm overjoyed to see how many of you are creators in your own right. I salute you for diving into the deep end of the pool without a flotation device. Why do we do it? I like to think that it's because we love whatever medium we choose so much that being a passive viewer isn't enough. But I think it's more that we need to create. We are compelled to have our voices heard. We need to share what we have to say in whatever way we can, whether doing it makes sense to anyone else or not, whether you know if there's even an audience. Call it compulsion, call it obsession, but don't forget to call it fun. I love film festivals because they are a celebration of the art and joy of creating, where experimentation and originality is still encouraged. They're a place where filmmakers can have movies that wouldn't be booked in the multiplexes get to be seen by an audience. Sometimes appearances at festivals can help a film get noticed and distributed. Oz Perkins' The Black Coat's Daughter was only shown at film festivals, which gave it a must-see reputation in the horror community, and it is now available on streaming services. Sometimes appearances at festivals help a project get completed. Jim Van Bebber famously screened The Manson Family at film festivals as a work in progress, and that helped the film get completed and distributed. And that's the fun as an audience member. You never know when you might see something that's just amazing. You never know when you might be there the moment that an artist makes that first splash and starts a tidal wave in years to come. How cool would it have been to be in that audience in 1967 when David Lynch screened 6 Men Getting Sick 6 times? And then seeing Eraserhead and Blue Velvet years later and having that realization hit you. You saw him when? So I was very happy to be asked to judge and attend Etheria Film Night at the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood. Etheria Film Night is the world's most respected showcase of new horror, comedy, science fiction, fantasy, action, and thriller films made by emerging women directors. This event puts the women directors who want to make genre films and TV in front of the people who want to hire them. The audience of Etheria is comprised of producers and managers and showrunners and distributors and genre fans and film journalists like me. These are short films from women across the world, and this year there were over 1,000 submissions. Etheria Film Night is the showcase for the finalists, and it's a chance for everyone who loves genre films to get together and celebrate. This year, the festivities included 8 films, competing for the jury prize for Best Film and the Audience Award. There was also the presentation of the Inspiration Award, which honors a genre film or TV pioneer who has inspired women to create their own genre films. This year it was given to 70s exploitation director Stephanie Rothman, who directed Student Nurses and The Velvet Vampire for Roger Corman. And Roger Corman was on hand to present the award to Stephanie. And I was lucky enough to get to cover the red carpet and get to talk with some of the filmmakers and some of the attendees about my favorite subjects, horror movies, and the people who make them. Now, as you might expect, the red carpet is a bit of a hurly-burly. There is a line of paparazzi that runs the length of the red carpet, and then there's the interview pit at the end. It was kind of a verbal mosh pit with multiple interviewers going on at the same time, and there was limited time to talk to people, so I apologize in advance for any inconsistencies there may be in sound quality. Events like these have a calm before the storm, And before things started to get crazy, I decided to start up conversations with some of the people behind the scenes. I met David Markland, whose company, Midsummer Scream, a Halloween festival in July, was one of the sponsors of the event. Halloween in July? I had to find out more. And we're here at Etheria Film Night, and it is pre-red carpet rundown, and I'm looking around and seeing who's all here, and there is a booth here for Midsummer Scream. David Markland is in charge of this. He's at the booth, and I wanted to ask him a few questions because Midsummer Scream tells me that we're going to be having Halloween in the middle of the year. So thanks for being interviewed, and give me a little bit of information about this.
Midsummer Scream is July 29th and 30th at the Long Beach Convention Center. And we bring out, or we invite pretty much anybody who's involved in the Halloween industry in all shapes and forms to come out and be part of this event to start to talk about Halloween and what they're doing for the holiday and other horror events around the year. But middle of summer is a great time to do it because it's right before the haunters are starting to do their builds. It's right when the promotions are starting for Halloween events, right when people are really starting to get the buzz. They're, for some reason, Halloween's just around the corner, even though it's hot out. So it's just a fun event.
Is this something that is more geared towards the haunters? Is it like an expo? Are there people selling their wares, or is there actual events, haunted houses themselves and things like that there?
It's both. I mean, it's a large event. I think compared to like haunt conventions where the pros come, we are we have that included within what we do. We have all the pro haunters from around Southern California come and join us, teaching classes or showing off what they have coming up for the Halloween season. But it's largely a fan event. So we have a bunch of booths where people can buy costumes and makeup and props or anything they want for the Halloween season, as well as just if they have a interest in horror. It's a big piece of what we do as well. So it's for everybody. But we really, the motivation behind the event is really to show everyone that they can be part of Halloween. Because Halloween's a very proactive holiday. People dress up. We have costumes. People like to go out and scare. We'll show them how to scare. So it just encompasses everything about this holiday, which is not about sitting on your butt. It's about getting out and doing stuff.
How did this turn into what it has become? How did it germinate? Were you a house haunter yourself?
I started a website called Creepy LA about 10 years ago, covering everything horror and Halloween around LA. And it sort of grew from there. Meeting all these great people who are part of the entertainment industry and the Halloween industry around LA, doing haunted houses and that. And so, meeting a lot of like-minded folks.
Well, great. Thanks so much for giving me some of your time. And if you'd like to tell us one more time how people can, when the event is and how they can get some information on it.
Sure. Go to midsummerscream.org, O-R-G, and anytime. And you can find out how to get tickets, see what our schedule's like, all the different events we have happening at the event. We've got dozens of panels and presentations along with all the vendors. We have at least 14 haunted houses set up just for the weekend. So you can find out all about it at that site along with buying tickets.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time, David.
Thanks a lot.
Another proud sponsor of Etheria is Girls and Corpses magazine, which features, you guessed it, Girls and Corpses. Editor-in-Chief Robert Rhine, better known as Corpsey, arrived in style in his pristine 1959 Cadillac Miller Meteor hearse with a few models and a few corpses in tow. Imagine my surprise when I found out that the corpses were real. These are plastinated corpses that are borrowed for events and photo shoots. I kid you not, you can look it up. And I'm here at Etheria Film Night with Corpsey, who is the editor-in-chief for the magazine Girls and Corpses. I'm holding a copy of it in my hand. There is Penn and Teller on here, well, part of Penn, or Teller that is. His head is severed, and he's being held up by a beautiful woman holding a saw. In other words, this is a perfect horror magazine, folks. So I'm here with Corpsey. Corpsey, tell me a little bit about your background on this, how this magazine came to be.
Well, we've been around for over 17 years. We're on worldwide on newsstands now, but it goes back to a lot of personal things in my life, experience of dying when I was 10 years old, and writing horror. I won a Bram Stoker Award for a book I was in. wrote a lot of fiction and also wrote comic books. I had a series started with selected readings from Satan's Powder Room. Then it was Satan Gone Wild. And we did, what were the other ones? Satan's Three-Ring Circus of Hell. So I would be at Comic-Con, and I would always have these corpses that were plastinated that a friend of mine had, and he let me borrow for Comic-Con. And girls would always come up and go, can I have my picture taken with the corpse? And I said, well, it's real. And they're like, yeah, I really want to take my picture with the... So I'm like, what's up with girls and corpses? And I thought, if you look at horror movies, it's really all about girls and corpses, isn't it? I mean, you look at Dracula, he was a corpse with a girl. The Mummy was a corpse, always running after girls. So the history of movies, if you look at it, it's always a girl in danger and some, dead guys chasing her or whatever. So that became the impetus of it. We started online, did 15 issues online before we went to print. And then we got distribution through Ingram, and we're worldwide on newsstands. So it's now gone to also film. I have a film label, which is Girls and Corpses Presents, under Tomcat Films. We put out 12 films. I have a new film, which I wrote and produced and exec produced, called Cynthia, which will be coming out later this year, starring Sid Haig's in it, Scott Taylor Compton, Bill Moseley. Obviously, I'm friends with a lot of guys from the Devil's Rejects. Rob Zombie actually helped me start Girls and Corpses in the sense that Sherry Moon Zombie was on our first print cover. And we shot her in a cemetery with Rob Zombie's corpse. So that's how we kind of started. But the best way to describe the magazine, it's like Maxim meets The Walking Dead meets Mad Magazine.
The horror media came out to support Etheria Film Night as well. And one of the people I got to talk to was Stacey Lane Wilson, who was there representing Dread Central. Stacey is also a TV host and reporter for Sci-Fi, Fangoria, and Horror.com, among others. She is also an award-winning filmmaker who directs features, shorts, and music videos, and Stacey's memoir, So L.A., a Hollywood memoir, became a #1 bestseller on Amazon.
I'm here as a judge, and I'm interested in your opinion on how you feel the genre is moving forward, if it's moving forward as of right now.
Yeah, I think it's definitely enjoying a good time in the spotlight right now. So, and I think it's all the hard work and the leg work and the foundation of festivals like this and Screamfest and Shriekfest, who are all run by women. Mm-hmm. And, I think that's helped, kind of they were the pioneers. So it's good to see.
Over the years that you've been involved, have you seen a positive actual forward motion for women in the horror genre?
I have, for sure. I mean, I've directed 2 feature films, so I'm the living proof. I think it's great. And I don't know that it's really, gender specific. Horror isn't, but, some people think it is. So it's good to just see those female names in the credits. It kind of homogenizes it for the viewer.
Sure.
Yeah.
What trend in horror in general do you think is really exciting as of right now, or a trend that you'd like to see come back?
Well, I think the supernatural trend has definitely been resurrected from James Wan, The Conjuring and the Annabelle films. And also Ouija, Origin of Evil is another one. So that's actually my favorite genre, so I'm happy to see that one making a comeback.
And not only was Dread Central there, but also Blumhouse was in the house. Blumhouse is the production company that gave us Paranormal Activity and Insidious and The Purge and Sinister, and in the past year, Split and Get Out. The editor-in-chief of Blumhouse.com, Dr. Rebecca McKendry, was kind enough to give me some of her time.
Hi, can I have a few moments of your time?
Sure, definitely.
I'm here with Rebecca McKendry, who I just saw at Texas Frightmare.
Yes!
Yeah, you spent time with Frank Henenlotter.
I did. Oh my gosh, I did so many of the panels at Texas Frightmare. We love that con. It is always such a blast.
I had a great time there. And that's one of your favorite movies, isn't it?
Brain Damage is one of my absolute favorite movies. I watched it in repetition when I was a kid, and obviously didn't understand some of the bigger adult tones for it, but it's grown with me over time, where I still have just as much appreciation for it as I did when I was a kid.
Yeah, and you're a lifelong horror fan, and here you are at the top of Blumhouse, which is a lot of fun.
I don't know if I'm at the top. I'm at Blumhouse, we'll say that.
Okay.
I'm working.
We gave you a chance there.
Yeah.
Now, some of the things that are yours is that you have a master's degree in media education, a second master's degree focused on film theory, and a PhD now
Yes.
in horror. that raised a few hackles of guys at the con. They're like, how can you get a PhD in horror? So tell us a little bit about what that is.
You totally can. My PhD is a doctorate of philosophy, of course, but my focus is film, and my focus within film is horror, cult, and exploitation movies.
That's awesome.
My dissertation focused entirely on horror marketing. And
Kroger Lab and everything you went through?
Everything, yeah. And so it's just been really amazing to kind of turn like a lifelong fandom into a career. And I love being a doctor of it. Like, it never really seemed like, even though it still took a long time, like it was not an easy doctorate to get. It still took me 6 years. But it was never once that I wasn't excited to do my work because of my content and because of my subject area. I was always really inspired and really excited to get going on it.
So you're here at Etheria Film Night. Have you come here before? Is this your first time?
I actually won the Viscera Film Festival 4 years ago, and then it turned into Etheria. And then as soon as they kept going as Etheria, I've been the moderator for like the past 4 years. And this year I brought my mom, who's standing over there. So I'm really excited to be able to bring her along because she's always been definitely the biggest cheerleader of my career. It's weird to say that your parents, really push you to watch horror films, but once they realized I really loved them, my parents were always like, yes, do that. You want to get a degree in that? Go do that. So, yeah.
I discovered this through Viscera. I discovered Viscera through Shannon Lark. She was in Sacramento at a small film festival.
I was at that film festival.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
In 2009? So I saw Wretched. And it was a great expressionistic piece that was a horror film that I would have never thought of, and it made me start paying more attention.
That's awesome!
So it's really, really nice. Do you feel that there's a great resurgence that's happening in the voice that women are having in writing of horror films?
I don't think it's ever gone anywhere. I think we're getting more media attention to it. Women have been integral in the film industry from the very get-go. Of course, there can be more for us, and when I say integral, I mean a small percentage of the film industry. We are seeing more women across the board come into bigger roles in film, and we are seeing more women come into horror films, which is where I think it's really needed. When I was growing up being a female horror film fan, it was like being a unicorn. Like, there was no one else like you anywhere. And now, just being able to stand here in a courtyard with just, 100 other females who are just as into horror films as I am, it's amazing and something I'm glad I got to see in my lifetime.
Yeah, it really rocks. And I got to say, Blumhouse, really fantastic work is being done.
I absolutely love everything that Blumhouse is doing and how just innovative the production team gets with all of the different movies and how one is never like the other one and they're never like anything you've seen before. So thank you for that.
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest trend or the thing that you're happiest to see happening in horror right now?
Not found footage. I always, trends always run, they wax and wane, and one will happen and I'll be like, yes, this is amazing, let's have more haunted house films. And then like 5 years later, I'm like, please no more haunted house films.
Of course.
And so that happened with torture porn, and then we went into found footage, and then we went into haunted house films. Right now, it's really hard to say what the predominant trend is. If anything, I would say small, because most of the films that we're seeing that are kind of, becoming landmark are quaint and small, and even on the budget range, kind of like, $2 million and below.
Yeah.
They're not major studio films.
Like
but
a Dark Song.
Yeah, Dark
really
Song is amazing.
Me.
I just saw The Devil's Candy again, really small, really tiny. My favorite film last year of Autopsy of Jane Doe. Literally like 4 actors. So yeah,
I just did a podcast about that.
I love it. So yeah, the ones that I'm seeing that are really turning my head, that's the best way I can describe them is small. But really powerful. And it definitely is like something massive at work, but you see it embodied within just 2 or 3 characters. So you have a witch, but it's just resonated through 2 or 3 characters, or the devil, just 2 or 3 characters. Yeah. So it's an interesting way to kind of approach horror, as opposed to it's a massive monster who's taking out all of Pittsburgh. You just get the same thing in a smaller grouping.
Right.
There is an interesting red carpet phenomenon I got to witness. A car would pull up to the curb, and an actress in a stunning dress would get out and walk the carpet. And then they'd turn around, get in the car, and leave. Ha! Show business. However, someone who walked the red carpet and stuck around to talk was actor Bill Moseley. Bill's first big role was Chop Top in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and he's a regular in Rob Zombie films, most notably as Otis B. Driftwood in Devil's Rejects and House of a Thousand Corpses. Bill is a prolific actor in horror with 113 credits under his belt, and he's also a supporter of the horror community. Bill was kind enough to give me some of his time to talk horror movies.
Bill, I've seen that you've been here a few times before.
Yes, I have.
What is the draw that's here for you for Etheria? What are you here for?
Well, if you look at the statistics in movie making in general, women have a much lower percentage of the jobs than men do. Women are really, there's some fantastic women writers, directors, producers, as well as actors. And so anything I can do to support them, I'm all for it.
You have, I think, 7 movies coming in this year.
I
and
do.
A few more. What do you feel about horror as of right now as a genre? Do you feel that it's in a resurgence period right now? Do you feel that there's a trend that's really interesting?
It always seems to change. I've seen some great new horror movies. Get Out, of course, was fantastic. And one of my favorite, it's kind of an oddball. It's not quite a horror movie, but it's kind of in the oddball, maybe a horror movie bracket, is The Greasy Strangler.
Oh, man. Hardcore.
So, I do, and I try to support any kind of, low-budget indie, because that's really what's been paying my bills for the last 30 years. So anything I can do, I'm always, happy to go see new stuff. I still like, the first 2 Human Centipede movies. I somehow got through a Serbian film,
Wow, yeah.
which was really an amazing movie, but one that I was glad never to have to see a second time.
I know, in a way, I almost felt like I wish I hadn't seen it so I
Yeah.
could say that I didn't.
It was an
almost like a weird
amazing
badge.
movie. It's an amazing movie. But that's what, true horror is really, gives you, it's such a wide and wonderful genre that you can really do a lot of different things, come at things in a lot of different angles, redefine the genre 1,000 different ways. So it's still very exciting.
Yeah. If you had, I always call it the first kiss. It's the movie that may not be your favorite, but it's the movie that just shocked you or confused you or just excited you enough that made you want to do this for the rest of your life. What was it?
I never really thought about myself as working in this genre. I come from the Midwest. My dad was, an industrial guy from Chicago. So it never really was part of my ambitions or even my fantasies to actually work in the genre. But I would have to say that something that really freaked me out early on was The Fly.
The
And I'm talking the original.
Right.
Yeah, The Fly and The Blob were like the first 2 movies that really freaked
You
me
were in
out
the
as a
remake
kid.
of The Blob.
I was in the remake of The Blob. The Fly, The Blob, and let's see what else. And I used to, risk my parents' wrath at midnight, Friday nights in Chicago. We had something called Shock Theater, so I saw a lot of
old enough to remember my guy as well.
So a lot of crazy, like a giant insect movies. I love all the horror films, most all. So yeah, I guess that kind of awakened it, but it never really went to bed, which was great. I was always excited. And when I got a chance to actually be in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2,
Right.
which is my first horror movie. I hit the ground running and haven't really stopped. I've slowed down a little bit, but I haven't stopped.
I also had the good fortune to talk with screenwriter Bettina Gilois, who was there to support the event. Bettina is a screenwriter of such films as McFarland USA and Glory Road, and an uncredited writer on The Mists of Avalon. Bettina talked about her newest project, about a very real monster.
I've got a movie coming out about Robert Durst and it's
Wow.
on Lifetime. It's called The Lost Wife of Kathy Durst, and of Robert Durst, and that's certainly a horror.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Story.
They've
Real life
made
horror
a fictionalized version several years ago, but of course they just had that HBO documentary as
Right.
well. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, on the documentary,
Yeah.
well, it's very good. It's very good, and of course very effective that he's back.
Yeah.
Standing trial. He's much scarier than anybody knows. It's much, much worse than anybody can imagine.
Have you
actually.
spent time with him or
No,
people involved with it?
But through the research and through the time I spent, not just talking to the family, but talking to people that knew him, I actually found some sources that are just my own, and I have an explosive story behind the movie I just wrote. There's another sequel to be told.
Wow.
Just about him.
That's really bizarre. I mean, what do you think is the piece of storytelling that inspires you so much? What kind of themes really compel you to write? Because writing's hard.
Writing's hard, but I love it. I'm happiest when I'm in a room, like you said, just quiet and writing. For me, it has to matter. It has to mean something. It has to have deep themes. My personal themes I'm interested in is sticking up for people, the unheralded, the oppressed, people who come up from under, people who are extraordinary, who are others try to keep down, and then they finally get to show themselves. Those kind of stories are wonderful, especially when they're true. So I'm very much of a true story kind of person as well. And you change people's lives by doing that.
Another red carpet phenomenon is the fashionably late appearance by key participants of the event. About 10 minutes before the event start time, a wave of people you want to interview show up, and their handlers are begging them to get inside and take a seat. And that's the situation I found myself in with director Stephanie Rothman and film legend Roger Corman. Due to the time crunch, Stephanie and Roger walked together, and I had 2 minutes to split between the two of them. No worries, right? For those of you who don't know Roger Corman, look him up for God's sake. He's only produced 412 movies and directed 56 of them. Here's a little bit about Stephanie Rothman. She studied sociology at UC Berkeley before she got interested in film and went to USC. She was the first woman to be awarded the Directors Guild of America Fellowship, and that got the attention of Roger Corman. She didn't want to make exploitation films, but if she had to, she was going to make the best exploitation films she could. Now, Stephanie parodied the exploitation movie tropes to show the absurdity of the male fantasies they represented when she made her movies The Student Nurses and The Velvet Vampire. We were treated to the trailers for these movies, and the obvious parody was laugh-out-loud funny. Stephanie left the film industry in the 1980s, and she was a little rusty on interviews, because she threw me a loop when she answered my first question with a nod, the kiss of death. But she and Roger were very kind to brush off their handler and give me a few moments of their time.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. I'm Scott Bradley from Hellbent for Horror. Roger Corman, it's wonderful to get to meet you. Stephanie Rothman, thank you so much for being here. I'm very glad that you're getting this Inspiration Award here. And you're getting it from Roger, the guy who gave you that start back in 1964. You started out as a sociology student at UC Berkeley, right? So that kind of gave you some things to work with to bring to the exploitation films that you were working on. I know you didn't like to consider them exploitation films, but what did you try and drive in there as social commentary with that background?
Well, many things. I mean, you're asking me to do a summary of my films.
You don't have to.
And you've said it all for me, really.
Okay. Well, what do you feel of all your films? What one do you feel is the one that you're most happy with and that you feel stands the test of time now?
Well, it's not for me to judge what stands the test of time. It's for others to judge that. But my favorite film is my last film. And oddly enough, it cost less than all the other films, and I had to shoot it in a shorter time. But it was a culmination of all the experience that I had gained making those earlier films. And it's forgotten, nobody knows it, nobody's seen it, and it's very dear to my heart.
Okay, well, thank you, Roger. I know we have to get you inside. If I can't say anything else to the legendary Roger Corman, I just want to say thank you for making this world a cooler place. What you did with these movies was such an inspiration for me, American International as well as New World, and doing The Intruder and having that not go anywhere for you, and then changing how we put that subtext into movies like this. And you gave birth to so many great filmmakers. I just want to thank you for that. How do you feel filmmaking for the independent world is going right now?
Well, I think filmmaking for the production standpoint is easier because you now have the lightweight digital equipment it's easier to make a film.
Yes.
On the other hand, it's more difficult to distribute a film because the theaters are primarily, I wouldn't say fed up, I'll say filled up with $100 and $200 million films, and it's only occasionally that a medium or low budget independent film can come in. So it's better from the production standpoint, not quite as good from a distribution standpoint.
The event started with a presentation of the Inspiration Award, and then we got into the reason we were all there, to watch some movies. Now, as a judge, I had already seen the films, and I was interested to see how differently the films played on a big screen with a full audience. So here are the films that showed, and some information about their directors. I'll be supplying links to the films where I can, and trailers and information where you can find out more about these movies. From New Zealand comes Do No Harm, an action-filled thriller directed by Roseanne Leong. Roseanne has written and directed several short films, and she also directed for New Zealand television. Do No Harm was nominated for both the Sundance and South by Southwest Jury Awards. The story synopsis: in an aging private hospital, a surgeon is forced to break her physician's oath when violent gangsters storm in to stop a crucial operation. This movie was a total crowd pleaser. Roseanne Leong shows a real talent in framing action and screen direction and mixing up the pacing of the shots. I like that she was assured enough in her film language to let some of the action happen off screen and allow the sound to tell the story instead. Our next film is Einstein Rosen, a science fiction film from Spain, written, directed, and edited by Olga Osorio. Olga's first short fiction film, Restart, was an official selection of the Citrus Film Festival and featured at film festivals like Fantasia in Montreal, PIFFF in Paris, and BIFFF in Brussels. And Einstein Rosen itself won 8 awards out of 16 nominations in international film festivals. The movie starts in the summer of 1982. 2 boys play outside their apartment complex. Teo claims he's found a wormhole. His brother Oscar does not believe him, at least not for now. Osorio shows a gift for comic timing and working with children and making them seem naturalistic. This is an upbeat and really fun film. The next film is Earworm, a horror film from the US, and it is the directorial debut of Tara Price. Tara has multiple credits acting in television and in other short films. The synopsis: when a reclusive man is repeatedly woken up over the course of a night by severe headaches, accompanied by musical repetition from an unknown source, his sanity swiftly begins to unravel. This movie has a quirky sense of humor, but there's a sense of dread that keeps escalating. When the movie finally pays off what that dread's all about, the audience started to moan and squirm. I'll be interested to see what Tara Price does next. The next film is a science fiction film from the U.S. entitled Swell, directed by Bridget Savage Cole. Bridget has 12 directing credits to her name between television, The Funny or Die Show, and short films. In 2011, Bridget was selected to participate in AFI's directing workshop for women. Her previous short film, Uiwana, featured a performance by the late Karen Black. The synopsis of Swell. Swell is an app that allows users to change their mood or emotion through sound. When a young couple tries to control each other's settings, the relationship is tested by a cacophony of emotions. This movie surprised me. What made Swell stand out was how much the story relied on the acting skills of the 2 main characters. We have an app that affects people's emotions through sound, and that app goes a little haywire through the film. Bridget Savage Cole shows a confident hand with actors, and the mixture of acting and sound design gives a finale that elicits genuine emotion from the audience, all within a genre, science fiction, that is not known for its emotional depth. Bridget Savage Cole is someone to watch. Our next film is a horror fantasy film from Spain entitled Jules D., directed by Norma Vila. Norma has been a cinematographer on multiple shorts, and Jules D. is her directorial debut. The story follows Jules, a young boy who becomes obsessed with Bram Stoker's and Todd Browning's Dracula. He's a misfit, and he's determined he wants to be a vampire when he grows up, and troubles mount as he acts out. This is a beautiful film to look at, with incredibly rich colors and very detailed shots and imagery that drips with gothic flair. And blood. I'll be interested to see where Norma Vila goes with her next narrative. Our next film is a dark comedy from the UK entitled The Honeymoon, directed by Ruth Pickett. Ruth is an Emmy Award-nominated writer and director. Her online series Print Friends was nominated for an International Emmy Award for Best Digital Fiction. The synopsis. A newlywed Christian couple go on their honeymoon to what they believe to be a quaint bed and breakfast in the Welsh countryside. But the cottage turns out to be a sex den, and events go horribly wrong. This movie, can you tell, is broad, crazy comedy, and it played very well with a full house audience. Ruth has a strong sense of comedy, although I will say her timing feels more suited to television sketches. Really naughty television sketches. Our next film is a science fiction film from the U.S. entitled Real Artists, directed by Cameo Wood. This is the second film Cameo has directed, and Real Artists has won 3 of 4 nominations at various film festivals. The synopsis. In the near future, a young animator is offered what should be her dream job, but when she discovers the truth of the modern creative process, she must make a hard choice about her passion for film. This film looks amazing. I'm not sure what the budget was, but Cameo has a very good eye for set design and color palettes. She is also very much at home working with CGI and digital effects, which also makes the production just seem huge. The story is satirical and sardonic, and it has a twist at the end that fits very well in science fiction storytelling. I'll be interested to see what Cameo decides to tackle next. The last film of the night was a horror film from the U.S. entitled Kumal, directed by Tharadi K. Kumal is the second film Tharadi has directed, but she has a lot of experience on film sets. Tharadi is an acclaimed makeup artist who has 38 film credits, including prosthetics work on Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Kumal itself has won 9 awards and 18 nominations in film festivals around the world. The synopsis. An ancient Thai legend says that if an unborn child is sacrificed to the darkness, eternal life can be attained, at the risk of the restless mother's spirit exacting her revenge. Kumal was the most overt horror film of the night, and it creeped people out with its subject matter. It was also one of the shortest films at 6 minutes and 45 seconds, which was about half the length of the others. And I have to say, I think that short running time compressed the story too much, and the narrative didn't have time to engage us outside of the jump scares. However, there are some very good practical effects, courtesy of Tharadi herself, and the cinematography is very strong and striking. And Tharadi conjures up some disturbing visual images that make me want to see what she could do with a wider canvas to play on. At the end of the night, the awards were presented. The winner of the Audience Award was Do No Harm, the action thriller from New Zealand directed by Roseanne Leong. Roseanne was not able to be at the festival in person, but she sent her thanks by way of a text message to her friend in attendance, actress Florence Hartigan. You gotta love technology. And the jury prize for Best Picture went to Swell, the science fiction film from the U.S. directed by Bridget Savage Cole. Since the movies came from all over the world, not all the filmmakers were able to be there in person. But I was able to have an interview with 2 of the directors, Tara Price of Earworm and the jury prize winner, Bridget Savage Cole. There was a lively post-awards Q&A session with the filmmakers and actors from the films, and in that Q&A, Tara Price confessed to being a full-bore horror lover who bends towards the bleak side of things as a writer. How could I not interview her?
So
this is your directorial debut,
Yeah, it
Earworm.
is.
So where did you get the idea to go in this genre?
The genre is a no-brainer because I love horror, but I wasn't even thinking about this as a horror movie. I really wasn't. I was just like trying to think of I wanted to direct something. I was trying to think of something I could do that would be feasible, without having to raise $1 bazillion. And it just, ideas pop up at random times. You're in the car, you're in the shower, just ideas pop into your head. And I've always liked the expression earworm. I've always thought it's just a cool expression that like nobody knows what the heck it means. They confuse it with earwig all the time. So I just thought it would be funny if I combined what it really is with what people think it is, and thus was the birth of my idea.
So on your IMDb, I think it says that you like to write, and you like to write down a dark bend. So talk about that a little bit.
I don't think I can help it. It just, it's how the brain works, I guess.
What do you consider a dark bend?
I don't know. Just bleak.
Bleak.
That's the adjective I tend to use, is bleak. My stuff is a little, and that's because that's what other people have told me. Things kind of end like, what the hell was that? I produced 2 other short films that I wrote before this. I didn't direct those, but it was the same thing. I wrote them, and my last one especially had a very kind of ending, and same with this one. But then my second draft was when I added in the beat after the credits with Ernie with the song, and it because I thought. Well, a couple things about that is I thought, it's nice for the audience to see him again. Oh, he's not laying on the ground. And also it's like, well, he's not dead. But wait a minute, is this before all that happened? Because that's when the song isn't. Anyway, that's what I was thinking as I wrote it.
Or has he transformed into like a pod person?
Maybe. See?
He'll go somewhere else, and he'll squirt out another worm, and next thing you know, you got a sequel.
Exactly. I like where you're going with this.
Well, I do have a horror podcast. It's unfortunate for me or for her. For me, it's fantastic. But so what are you? So you talk about bleak. What kind of films do you like the most in horror? I mean, where are the influences? Because I have a feeling you like the ambiguous ending. You like
I do. Well,
Black Christmas. You'd be like, oh yeah, that's exactly where to leave her, on that rocking chair.
God, I saw that. Where did I see that? I may have seen it here, or it was in Arrow or New Beverly or somewhere.
Really?
I saw that just a few years ago. Yeah, that's a good one. My favorite horror movie, which I referenced earlier, is Carpenter's The Thing. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
It's a little sci-fi, but I think that's, for me, it's not so much about the gore, it's about the psychological journey it takes you. I mean, granted, there was some awesome gore in that, no doubt, but that shit holds up even today. But that's why I think I like it still so much. That's the stuff I grew up on as a kid. That's the stuff that still stands the test of time and still amazes me when I watch it to this day. And I guess that's the stuff that influences me, is that. And I got to throw in there, too, that I was a huge fan of the Twilight Zone growing up. So that's another big influence for me in the direction I kind of go, I guess. That stuff shapes you, whether you realize it or not, it does.
Of course. Since you're a big horror fan, I'm assuming that you watch the trends that are happening. You see what's happening. What do you think?
Yes.
You think?
I don't know. You're probably going to ask me something right now. I'm not going to know anything about it.
No, I was going to ask, there's a certain style that seems to be out there now that's very dread-inducing. A lot of the low-budget films are going towards that kind of darkness. Do you think that that's something that can hang around for a while?
Everything has its sort of a shelf life. It's interesting. Like for a while, that whole torture porn thing was really huge and popular, and it's kind of, something else is taken over now, and that's normal. Everything cycles.
Oh, torture porn.
Well, like everybody gets into vampire films for a while, and then I don't know, the next thing comes around. But I like to see. I was a huge fan of Get Out this year. That's I think the best film I've seen this year. I mean, that just blew my mind, and that. Gore factor, aside, it's a psychological thriller. It is. And I think seeing that going, that's making a comeback, I think. With, like you were saying, with the dread, and it's not so much about shock value, which I'm not knocking. I like that. Look, I like a lot of blood as much as the next person, but it sounds weird. But I think the scariest thing when it comes to human beings is human beings, what they do to each other and the way our minds work, and how some people walking this planet are just wired really fucked up, and they're going to hurt other people. And that to me is the scariest thing out there, really.
Where are you going next? What's the next thing you're going to do?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm riding this out. This has been a blast. I love going to these festivals. Next week I'll be in Portland.
Oh, great.
For the Portland Horror Festival, Horror Film Festival. And Earworm's playing at the Final Girls Berlin Film Festival this next weekend. It's also playing at the Jim Thorpe Independent Film Festival in Pennsylvania.
I know where that is, weirdly enough. Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, it's gorgeous from the pictures. I wish I could go to that one. I wish I could go to all of them. So this is just, it's exciting. It's taking up a lot of my time. But in the back of my brain, I'm like, I got a bunch of shorts written. I'm working on a couple features. I don't know. I don't know, other than, I will say this. I am making a music video for the song and my movie, sort of as a love letter to my composer, because he made this amazing song that really is an earworm.
Yeah.
And I wanted, and I would get asked at a lot of Q&As, like, where'd you get that song? So we wanted it to, I told him when I brought him on board, when I forced him to come on board, I said, we got to come up with something that's poppy, but sounds like something that you would have heard before, like has like a familiar thing about it, and will get stuck in people's heads after they watch the movie. And man, he nailed it. He did. So I want people to actually be able to hear the song unfiltered in its entirety. So I'm flying out back east sometime this summer, possibly next month. I haven't worked it out yet, and we're going to shoot a music video for it. So that's immediately what's up next.
Well, Tara, thank you so much for the time that you gave me.
Thank you.
And congratulations on a really great night.
Oh, what an awesome night. Thank you for being here.
As one might expect, Bridget Savage Cole was swarmed by people after the show, but she was kind enough to give me a few moments of her time. You just won the jury award. Congratulations, Bridget, for the movie Swell. What got you involved in this idea? I know that you're a fan of science fiction, but it feels like this really was a challenge.
Totally. Partially it's inspired by the way we love to hack our own lives. I was using a meditation app at the time, and also I have apps for everything, biometrics and to... Gosh, I don't even know what, but it's also even like the way we have vitamin waters that say focus, intensity, or whatever it is, relaxation, our teas or everything. Everybody wants to cultivate and curate the perfect day, and we all think we're scientists. So this was sort of a play on that, so inventing an app that actually gives you the ability to change your emotions based on a schedule or however you want to do it. And also the futility of that, to me, in some ways, it's like we really can't control things. And this film, on the other hand, was also just sort of riffing off what it feels like to be on a different page from somebody that you're in a relationship with, right. Whether it's a romantic relationship or just a coworker or something. That feeling of when you're cranky and tired and the other person's really peppy, or when you want to stay up late and watch TV and somebody just wants to go to bed. When it's that disconnect, when you're trying to connect with somebody and you're on different pages, and the pain of that, and the way that these characters try to control each other. So that was what was fun for me to explore, that conflict and that. And then ultimately, I think what gave the film heart in the end, or at least what I tried to do, was show how people could actually connect in the end. And that even though they're using the app throughout, it sort of is what that feels like for an audience, and how satisfying that can be after so much disconnection. Yeah.
It was so impressive to me because you really had great music that was in there. The visuals were great, and the acting was just so amazing. How much did you get nervous going, hey, I'm making a science fiction film where all the special effects are the actors?
Oh, I stressed out so much. I mean, we literally did 3 different castings, so that was really where it came down to. It took me like 4 or 5 months to cast this film. I wanted this to be like this quick little summer project. I was like, I just wrote this quick little film. It's just 2 actors in a room. It's going to be so easy and great. But then I just couldn't find the right actor that could really both have chemistry with I knew they needed to have chemistry, and I also knew that they needed to have a range. So that it couldn't just be people playing themselves. I related to be people that had like instruments. So it was actors. The actors I found, Gabriel Luna and Britt Lauer, are so incredible, and they gave so much physicality to the movie, and they really lived it, and they really connected. They had incredible chemistry, and that was really made me fall in love with them.
Was there anything in there that you found while you were shooting? In other words, there was something that they did and you went, oh man, I got to change this emotion just a little bit.
So many things. I mean, I just feel like they're wonderful actors and they really drop into a scene. So their reactions were sometimes surprising even to themselves, and that's why I love them. They would have these little eye twitches and this, and would bark something out. And the only, what I really did as a director was try to choose the right people, give them space. We had these really expansive takes, be like twice as long. And then we would pare it down. And so we were really trying to find the dynamics of the piece as a whole so that it really could almost be like a hero's journey through the film. And
I saw the shout out to Jules Verne. So are you a
Jules
big
Verne.
I saw 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
No, 2001 Space Odyssey.
I could have sworn I saw Jules Verne as one of the books that they were laying on.
Actually, it was there, but that's like a real good deep dive there, man.
I do that kind
you
of thing.
You have the good eye.
Yeah.
No, that was actually just happened to be one of the prop books. So I can't say that was a crucial part of the. I can tell you other sci-fi's.
That's what I was going to ask.
Cool.
What is it? Nerd. Come on, nerd.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, I do really love sci-fi. I have anything that creates a premise where you get to think about humanity in a different way, to me is really interesting. I love Children of Men, but also I think what was another fun part of this was, so the aesthetic of today is already so futuristic. So an iPhone is literally the most sci-fi prop you could ever have from 20 years ago. So to me, there was something fun about just sort of being in this canon of science fiction and what looks futuristic, but actually just using iPhones. And that was really fun for me. And also I feel like there was predecessors. So that's a cool thing about being in a genre. You get to engage with the rest of the genre, and you can get to engage with the history of films that came before you and different ways of storytelling. So in particular, I was just thinking about Fahrenheit 451, the seashell, I forget what they're called, but the little earbuds they wear. And then also there's a Philip K. Dick book, which has this device called Penfield's Mood Organ. I think it's in even Android's Dream of Electric Sleep. It's the one Blade Runner was based on.
Right, it is.
Yeah, but it's just kind of like a real one-liner kind of thing in the book, and it's basically what we're doing, but with apps.
Yeah, he had Ubik as well, which was you sprayed your emotions and then you dialed them on the phone.
Yeah,
this
this thing is so Philip K. Dick fangirl. But if I really think about it, kind of on the subconscious level when I was writing it, but.
Thanks so much for your time. What are you up to now?
Really fun stuff. I have a co-writer, Danielle Crudy, and her and I are directing a film this year, and it's a thriller. It's called Blow the Man Down, and we're pitching this other film called Hit List. That's actually a horror film. So to me, there's it's not weird at all to jump genres. I just like films that go for it with style. Yeah.
Thanks so much for your time, and congratulations again for your jury prize win.
Thank you so much for your awesome radio-friendly voice and smooth questions. Anyway,
thanks.
Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Same to you. And that's how Etheria Film Night ended. As I walked back to my hotel, I couldn't help but feel some of the buzz of excitement there was for the artists. People will say that short films are rough. They shouldn't be done because they're limited to being shown at festivals. But the reality is they are still being seen. These directors felt the call to get their voices out, and instead of waiting and hoping for enough time or enough money, they answered the call and they did it. And festivals like this allow them to feel appreciated for taking that risk. And who knows if that appreciation was the splash that starts a tidal wave. I mentioned at the start of the show about why we decide to create. I said I'd like to think that it's because we love whatever medium we choose so much. But the reality is that the medium sometimes picks us. My consuming passion, my obsession with horror was around a lot longer than podcasting even existed. But at the right time, when I was compelled to get my voice out, podcasting was there, and it was available, and it was attainable. I didn't know the first thing about podcasting, or web hosting, or domains. Who gives a shit? Microphones are cheap, and I got some talking to do. Congratulations to all the artists at Etheria Film Night, and all the artists beyond.
And you are...
I am Scott Bradley, Hellbent for Horror.
Hellbent for Horror, dude. That's awesome.
And thanks for listening to the show. Hellbent for Horror was written and broadcast by me, S.A. Bradley, and produced by me and Lisa Gorski. You can find more on our website, hellbentforhorror.com, and I'm also on Facebook at facebook.com/hellbentforhorror, and my Twitter handle is hellbenthorror. You can find Hellbent for Horror on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher, and other podcast platforms. And H4H has its own app. You can download it from the Google or Amazon store for Android, and the iPhone version is available on the iTunes store. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, stay hellbent.